Hi everyone, in this lesson we're going to go over digestive accessory organs. These are organs that are not part of the main GI tract. They are not the hollow tube that food passes through, but they add elements to the hollow tube of your mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and it's going to add stuff to that GI tract organs tube to aid and facilitate digestion. So the accessory organs we're going to go over is the tongue, the liver, the gallbladder, the salivary glands, as well as the pancreas. Actually, we're not going to go over the tongue so much, but we are going to go over the teeth a little bit. So this is key vocab we're going to go over, and we're going to go over the function and the stuff produced by these key accessory organs. Now, what makes an accessory organ an accessory organ? Basically, it's not a hollow tube organ. Food does not pass through that accessory organ, but the accessory organ can be inside or on one edge of the GI tract organ. They may aid in mechanical digestion, but a lot of accessory organs we're going to go over contribute chemicals or enzymes that help aid that process. There's a missing word there. Most accessory organs contribute chemicals or enzymes or help that aid digestion. When I talk about enzymes, I'm talking particularly about digestive enzymes, whose main job is to break chemical bonds in larger molecules to turn them into smaller molecules. All right, so there's two main divisions of the digestive system, like we talked about. We went over GI tract or alimentary canal on the last lesson. In this lesson, we're going to go over the accessory organs. There are other accessory organs than this list. I'm going to go over these ones only, though. For example, a tongue would be considered an accessory organ in your mouth, in addition to the teeth and tongue. So your mouth has several accessory organs, and those accessory organs in your mouth are going to help actually form that ball of food, the bolus that you're going to swallow down your esophagus. Now, the first accessory organ is your teeth. And the teeth help the act of chewing, which is also known as mastication. Chewing, mastication, same thing. And this is physical digestion you do by grinding and tearing your food with the aid of your teeth. And your teeth are considered accessory because, again, food's not going inside the teeth. You're going inside the mouth. And the teeth are just around to assist the mouth in the process. Now, in addition, you have these salivary glands on the edges of your mouth. They're going to start pumping in saliva into your mouth to help the act of softening your food. And actually, that saliva also has some materials in it that will actually begin chemical digestion, though really, you're barely chemically digesting food in your mouth. For most people, you're maybe getting like 1%, probably even less than that, of the chemical digestion that will occur in the mouth. Okay? So, in the saliva, there's mainly water. However, there's some other stuff too. So 0.5% will be some of those enzymes that will help the digestive process. Antibodies and mucus. Mucus is just going to make that food even more slippery and easier to swallow. And antibodies, well, they'll actually help your body detect if that food is bad for you and maybe initiate an immune reaction if they detect, oh, there's some possible virus or bacteria. And for some unlucky people, those antibodies in your mouth may also start to trigger allergy reactions. If your body thinks something innocent like strawberries is bad for you, like a virus, then they'll start attacking and you might break out into hives and things. But that's kind of what antibodies are there for. They're there to detect bad stuff, but for some unlucky people, it triggers allergies. Now, in terms of chemical digestion, there's two key enzymes that are produced by your saliva. One is amylase, which is going to help break down the carbs, aka the complex carbs, your starches, in your mouth into simple sugars. And of course, we have lipase. So lipase is an enzyme that's going to help break down the fats in your mouth into smaller bits, aka the fatty acids that are more easier to digest. Now, there's some downsides of both of these. So one, you're not chewing your food that long, so it's not going to be digested very well. But in addition, while you could theoretically digest carbs because carbs can mix into the water of your mouth, your saliva is mainly water, so actually lipids aren't really going to be digested regardless. Even if you chewed your food for 20 minutes, you're not going to get a ton of lipid digestion because those lipids aren't going to be mixing into the water and reaching the enzymes in your mouth. But you might get like a teeny bit of lipid release, meaning lipid breakdown, just a little bit, but not very much.
Now, in reality, you're really not going to get much chemical digestion in your mouth. The chewing is going to be great and very helpful for physical digestion, meaning getting that food into smaller bits so that it can be activated and reached by enzymes later in your stomach and your small intestine. But in reality, you're going to swallow that food pretty quickly and it's going to hit your stomach and it's going to be denatured by the acid in the gastric juices. So, why even have digestive enzymes in your mouth at all? Well, it actually turns out even just having a little bit of enzymes really helps speed up the process of softening that food so it's more swallowable. You really don't realize this, but you can really get that the starches in bread and the starches in your pasta and rice to become much smaller in terms of being able to mix into a soft thing you can swallow within seconds with the help of enzymes versus none at all. In addition, those enzymes that break down a tiny bit of starches into sugars and a tiny bit of those lipids into fatty acids, they're going to make those sugars from the complex carbs and the fatty acids from those lipids reach your taste buds and activate your taste buds. Your taste buds in your mouth can really only detect small molecules. So by releasing them, your taste buds realize what's going on. Your brain gets these like, ooh, food's entering my body thing going on. And then your digestive system and your later organs now have some signals coming into play from your nervous system and from your nervous system releasing hormones to go, hey, we got to start making enzymes. We got to start making digestive materials. Sorry about that. Someone's driving really loudly outside my house. So that's kind of why we want to get some of those fats and some of those sugars to release themselves so our body activates the gut for secretions.
All right. The second major section that receives a lot of aid from accessory organs is your small intestine, particularly your duodenum. So your duodenum or your duodenum is the initial section of your small intestine that is attached to your stomach. So if you recall, we have our stomach, but the tube that's hooking out of your stomach at the end of it, that's the small intestine, the initial part of your small intestine, and we call it the duodenum. That is a section that gets a lot of material from your gallbladder as well as your liver dumped into it, and it mixes with the contents coming out of the stomach. So one of the key things coming into there is something called bile. So bile is a really important liquid chemical. It's actually called bile salts that emulsifies fat. So it doesn't digest fat. Well, not in terms of the chemical bond, but it does make that fat more accessible for enzymes. So the way it works is it takes the fat. So you probably know that fat will not mix with water. If you put a lot of oil in water, that oil will kind of float on top and refuse to mix into the water. That actually is a big issue because your stomach acid and this chyme in your body is mainly water. Okay? So without bile, the fat will not mix into your chyme, especially in your small intestine. And then because the fat stays separate from everything else, you can't get enzymes into that fat to digest the fat. So what bile is going to do is going to break that fat into tiny drops. And what that's going to effectively do is prevent the oil from separate, or the fat lipid from separating from your stomach acid. Instead, it's going to mix it into the chyme, basically. The chyme that left your stomach and is entering your small intestine is going to all mix up into one smooth mix. And what that bile salt is going to do is, because they're tiny droplets, now you can dump a bunch of enzymes into this chyme, and any enzymes you have, especially for fat, are going to be able to access all of the fat really easily to break it down super quickly. So the bile is actually produced by your liver. So your liver plays a huge role in many, many things, but in particular in the digestive system, it forms bile. Now, that bile can be released directly into the small intestine, as you can see here through this tube, into your duodenum. But in addition to that, it also plays some other roles. So one thing you may not know is your liver. It's actually one of the really large organs in your abdominal cavity. And it actually can store a lot of excess food. So it stores and releases nutrients. So if you have extra glucose in your blood, you can store it as glycogen in your liver. If you have extra vitamins, lipids, or amino acids, which again, amino acids are parts of proteins, if you have excess of any of that, you can actually store it in your liver if you don't have a place to put it in your body. Another thing that your liver does is it plays a role in breakdown of materials coming through your digestive system. So any toxins and stuff like that coming out of your digestive system gets a chance to be passed through your liver and filtered to prevent it from moving into your blood and potentially going to your brain and damaging it and stuff like that. So those are the main roles the liver does in just the digestive system. It plays roles in other places like your immune system to a degree, and in particular your cardiovascular system has a liver play a role in there, but we're just going to focus on the digestive system. But the biggest thing it does is produce bile. Now sometimes it's producing bile, but there's no food in your system, so what are you going to do with that bile? Well, you can stick it in your gallbladder, which is going to store and concentrate that bile so it's extra potent. And then when you eat a really huge meal, you'll have a huge pocket of bile that you can dump into your duodenum to really facilitate and speed up that emulsification, that mixing of fat, so that it can then be broken down. So where do we get the enzymes to break down fat, as well as enzymes to break down other food molecules in your small intestines? Well, some of it is made by your small intestines, but a huge amount of those enzymes are coming out of your pancreas. So your pancreas is this yellow, soft, squishy organ that's sits right underneath the stomach. And again, it has tubes to dump its content directly into the duodenum. So one of the big things it does is it has bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is baking soda. If you look at the back of a baking soda carton, it's got calcium bicarbonate or sodium bicarbonate in it. And bicarbonate is the thing that neutralizes acid. So if you mix vinegar with baking soda, the baking soda helps stop the vinegar. In this case, this neutralizes the acid coming out of your stomach. So your stomach has an acidic pH of 2 to 4, and that acid can damage and burn the small intestine. But because your pancreas is making bicarbonate, it neutralizes the acid and brings it back to a neutral pH of 7 to 8, so that everything in your small intestine is at a pH of 7, 8. That's not going to be damaging. In addition to this, the pancreas also makes a bunch of enzymes. So some of these enzymes include trypsin, which is an enzyme that digests protein in the small intestine, because pepsin from your stomach won't work anymore. It also makes more amylase to add to the small intestine, because the amylase made by your mouth, your salivary glands in your mouth, is no longer active. So this can help add more carbohydrate digestion that is in your small intestine, as well as lipase. Or lipase is the enzyme that actually digests fat molecules into smaller molecules. So bile helps mix it so that lipase from your pancreas can digest it chemically. In addition to that, your pancreas also produces hormones called insulin and glucagon that actually regulate the blood sugar levels. So you may know of insulin. If you're diabetic, you have a hard time controlling your blood sugar, and oftentimes one of the reasons is because your insulin isn't working the way it should. Okay, so this is a summary picture I showed you earlier in the past of the digestive organs, both the GI tract organs as well as accessory organs, kind of like a quick map of it. So again, if you want to, you can print this picture or kind of make your own version of it. I just find it as a good reference, but the lecture, this covers all the stuff that was covered in the lecture. So accessory organs primarily play a major role in providing digestive enzymes to help break the bonds in large food molecules or provide ways for enzymes to access that food. All right. So the teeth in your mouth, while they aren't enzymes, they do help chew your food so that into smaller bits, so that enzymes like the enzymes from your salivary glands, like amylase, are able to access that food better. It also breaks it down into food so that by the time it reaches your stomach and then your small intestine, it'll be able to be accessed better. All right. In addition to that, the salivary glands, besides the amylase, also add other material, and together it's going to help break down the carbohydrates and soften your food a little bit before it enters your GI tract in the pharynx and your esophagus. Now, bile, just be careful. A lot of students tell me bile is a thing that is needed to break the lipids into fatty acids, into smaller molecules, but bile is not the enzyme itself. Bile helps mix fat so that it can be accessed by the enzyme. So bile helps mix the fat into the chyme, but the thing that's actual, which we also called emulsifying, but the thing that actually digests the fat itself is called lipase, and that's from your pancreas. So your pancreas provides the enzyme. Your liver and small intestine, your liver and gallbladder provide the bile for mixing. Okay? All right. Finally, pretty much if you have an enzyme you need for digestion, while some enzymes are made by your mouth or by your salivary glands in your mouth and in your stomach, which is not accessory gland, but just a GI tract organ, pretty much every enzyme you need to digest food is created by your pancreas. Okay? And your pancreas does a lot of work in digestion. In addition to that, it'll provide bicarbonate to prevent damage from your stomach acid. All right, so that concludes the accessory organs for this section. So move on to any other work you have. Bye.